Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Travis and Damian Podcast, episode 43. We're available on anchor.fm/Travis Damian Podcast, along with Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. Today, we're going to be talking about the gaming news from the past 2 weeks, including Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, and Nintendo's Indies Showcase. Then we're going to go into our recent activities. Lastly, we're closing the show out with Avatar creators leaving the Netflix adaptation. So let's start with Halo Infinite getting delayed to 2021. I think that this is a pretty big blow for Microsoft in terms of their launch of the Xbox Series X, because they're still planning to launch it this November, but without Halo.
Yeah, that is a really big blow to them, since that was supposed to be their big, first party game, why you would get an Xbox Series X. It's sort of like if Sony was like, all right, Miles Morales is delayed too. I mean, they probably are safe to do that now if they wanted it to. If it wasn't Rary, because Halo isn't coming out anymore. But that was sort of the big reason why you get Xbox Series X, and now it's delayed. So at this point, I think Microsoft should just delay the Xbox Series X at this point. I don't really know what else they have besides Halo Infinite. That's a really big game that people would want. So yeah, having this delayed is a pretty big blow to the new console. But I think it's kind of needed, since a lot of people were pretty down on Halo Infinite, especially with the graphics. A lot of people didn't think it was next gen enough and things like that. They had the brute meme. Craig. They just keep showing him everywhere. So yeah, they're probably just okay, it's probably better for us just to not do this. So again, it's a big blow to Microsoft, but it might be worth it in the end just to make Halo Infinite a better game, since Halo hasn't been too great with Halo 5. I know people were pretty down on, so they probably don't want another Halo 5 in that case. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because this is definitely the big flagship title that they were supposed to launch with the console. So if it launched and it turned out to be just as bad, if not worse, than what they showed earlier this year, or earlier a couple months ago or whatever, yeah, that would have been worse than them just delaying the game as it is right now. So yeah, when it does come out, I hope it is as good as people want it to be, if not better, just because Halo is a series and a franchise that's been going on for so long. At this point, a lot of people are kind of sick and tired of it, but to those people that are still, eagerly waiting for this game, I hope that when it does come out in 2021, whenever that is, hopefully it's the first quarter and not the second, because that would be far too long in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully when it does come out, it is just as good as people want it to be.
Yeah, hopefully, because Microsoft kind of needs this big game for the Series X, since the Xbox One didn't do as well as the PS4 or the Switch at this point. So they probably do need to get it together here.
Yeah.
All right, so next up we got Spider-Man. He's in Marvel's Avengers. Well, he's gonna be in a self-contained story, which is kind of what I said before, where he probably isn't gonna have a big main thing in the story, because he's only for Sony owners. Anyone that has a PS4 or PS5, he's just gonna be on those consoles. So this is exactly what I said before, that he's probably not gonna have a major role in the story. He's probably gonna have his own little thingy, and that's exactly what's happening here. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that expected him to be part of the main story are kind of just I don't know what you really expected, because they kind of last minute announced this thing. Because if they had this plan from the start, that would be insane. But I would imagine that Square and Sony met up at some point this year and were like, yo, you want some exclusive content, we'll try to get some sales up for the game itself, but also on PlayStation consoles. So maybe you could put Spider-Man in there. So a self-contained story that he probably views whatever happens in the main game from his perspective, or whatever happens before the game, whatever kind of story they want to do, because this Spider-Man is completely different from Insomniac Spider-Man, which we'll talk about next in the Entertainment Weekly article that they talked about, is that the way Marvel is approaching their games is not like the MCU. Nothing, or every single game is going to be in their own universe sort of thing. The games aren't connected in any sort of way unless it's a direct sequel sort of thing. But yeah, a self-contained story I'm fine with, and I think that people that were expecting them to be part of the main story, maybe it could happen in the next game if they make one, you know.
Maybe if it does well enough. Which at this point, from seeing all the beta stuff, I'm not too
Ooh.
sure.
Yeah, definitely watching Summit 1G. He was just messing around with the game, and the game just kept crashing. And I was like, yikes, that's not good, because he had like some like weird settings going on, and I was just like, I don't know, man. Like, and every single time I'm watching the gameplay, like it doesn't look like engaging or like super interesting in that aspect as well. So.
Yeah, it's not looking too great.
All right, so talking about that Entertainment Weekly article, we're going to talk about the Miles Morales Spider-Man portion of it. So they give us more details on the game itself, along with a very nice and fancy screenshot. So it is going to take place 1 year after the events of the first game, Marvel Spider-Man. It's a shorter spin-off. Think of the Lost Legacy for the Uncharted series, but with Spider-Man now. Miles he's his own Spider-Man, as they call it. He has his own animations, moves, and abilities, including the Bioshock and invisibility. And then the final quote is, "This is a full arc for Miles that started in Spider-Man, aka the first game." And that came from the game's director, or game's creative director. "We are really completing this hero's coming of age story in our game. It's a complete story." So I'm glad to hear that, because I know that a lot of people are still confused as to what this game is in terms of like how big it's going to be and things like that. But yeah, it is going to be in the scope of the Lost Legacy. It's going to be a sort of budget title, but it's not going to be a full AAA title in that aspect. And I'm pretty excited for it, because I think Miles Morales, he's become very, very popular within the past couple of years. And I think that a solo game within this like new Spider-Man world is going to be very good for him.
Yeah, and I kind of expected it to be like a shorter game anyway. Like, I think everyone kind of knew that at that point. I think Sonic even said like, "Hey, this is gonna be a shorter game, so don't expect like a full thing."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so yeah, I'm glad you're just saying that it's also gonna be a complete arc and stuff, and he's gonna have like his own like model, I guess, like his own animations and movement and stuff, and obviously abilities, because he has different superpowers than regular Spider-Man. So I'm just excited to see what they like, use his stuff for, like his invisibility and like his shocking thingy. It'll be really cool to see like some better stealth elements than in the original Spider-Man, because you played the game through it multiple times at this point, and I think you could say that the stealth segments are probably the weakest part of the game.
Yeah, in some aspects.
At least one of the weakest. I never liked them. So it's gonna be cool to see like do that, but as Spider-Man, like for real, like because you could go invisible and all that crap. So. Yeah, I'm still very excited for this game, and it's probably one of the main reasons why I'm getting the PS5 at launch, if it's gonna be like a launch window game. Again, we still don't really know yet, but hopefully it is. Hopefully it didn't get delayed, but I guess we'll see once it comes out and stuff.
Yeah, it is still slated for holiday 2020. So
yeah,
very excited.
Yeah, nothing has changed just yet, but you never know with this year. So.
True.
All right, so next we got Control is going to be limiting its free next-gen upgrades to its new $40 limited edition. And this doesn't apply to anyone that bought the original game or all of his DLC. So basically, if you bought the game at launch, including like the season pass and stuff like that, you do not get the free upgrade. Only people that are buying this new Ultimate Edition will get that next-gen upgrade. So as you can tell, a lot of people are not very happy about this.
Yeah, this is definitely a sort of greedy and like power move by them, being like, hey, because I'm pretty sure it's a lot of it has to do with, because when the game came out, I think like a week later, like it was like on sale for like dirt cheap or something. I'm not exactly sure why that happened or how that happened, but a lot of like retail outlets and stores were just like putting the game at like $10. I don't even know, but like it was like pretty low in terms of like how much this game actually was. But I thought that was because the game was bad, but it turns out the game is actually like a pretty good like story game from my understanding.
Yeah, it's really good apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that they are limiting this next gen upgrade to the $40 Ultimate Edition is definitely very weird, because I'm not exactly sure how many people are going to buy this next gen upgrade, because it might be $40, but that's another $40 that you have to spend, especially if you're one of the people that were supporting the game from the beginning and bought all of the DLC and the season pass and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure if there is a solution for those people. But yeah, I guess that this was like their like quote unquote simplest way, but at the same time collecting the bag in terms of getting that sort of, hey, we have a next gen upgrade, but you have to buy this new version of the game.
Yeah, and I don't know, that's really dumb, because I'm like, the game is already kind of niche, like it's like well, not niche, but like it didn't sell amazingly.
Hmm.
And also like the console versions of this game like really pushed those consoles to their limit, so they didn't really run too well on like a base PS4 or base Xbox One. So a next gen upgrade would have really been appreciated, but now you have to buy the Ultimate Edition just to do it, and just like all right. I actually have this game on PC, so I do want to play it, but yeah, that shit. It's just like it's not cool. Basically, it should be for anyone that bought the original game as well. But I guess maybe they think it was easier just to do it with the Ultimate Edition, or maybe just to get like people to double dip and all that horrible stuff. But yeah, either way, it's like not good for anyone, except people that maybe just bought the game right now. Then I guess you're fine. But yeah.
Yeah, for like people like me that would honestly want to, try the game out. Now this is the perfect time for me to try it out because it's $40 and it comes with everything and it has a free next gen upgrade. This is perfect for me.
Hmm.
But to those people that actually supported the game and actually gave them the ability to release this Ultimate Edition, like it sucks for them because they were like their day one supporters and they sort of just like got kicked to the curb because I don't know. That's just it's just what happened. So. I'm not sure if they came out with a statement or like any other things because I didn't see anything else. But yeah, it's definitely very interesting. I'm curious how many dislikes this video has. Yes, 698 to 197 likes. Yes. Definitely people are upset. So
Yeah, people are very very not happy about that.
yeah, and understandably. So.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get into the next piece of news is a free update for Ghost of Tsushima. It is called Ghost of Tsushima Legends. It is a multiplayer update. So there are two different modes in the game. So the first quote is each player can choose from 1 to 4 different character classes: the samurai, hunter, ronin, or assassin. Each class has unique advantages and abilities and will reveal in the future. So the 2-player mode, you play a series of co-op story missions that escalate in difficulty, building on the foundation of combat from the single-player campaign, but with new magical twists that often require careful synchronization with your partner. And then the 4-player based mode is a wave-based survival missions, fighting groups of the toughest enemies Tsushima has to offer, including new Oni enemies with with supernatural abilities. So yeah, this is a free update for Ghost of Tsushima to anyone that is still playing the game and now can keep playing it because of this new multiplayer mode. Personally, I'm not too interested in it, despite how good it does sound for 2 to 4 multiplayers. 2 different modes in that, and it is free. So maybe I should just get a PlayStation Plus subscription, just try it out. But I'm honestly not all that interested in console multiplayer stuff these days, if I'm going to be honest. But yeah, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think it's really cool that they just added this for free. Like this is something you could easily make someone pay like $20 for, and just like, all right, just as DLC. But the fact that Sucker Punch is just making this for free, and it looks pretty substantial from what they're saying, that's really cool that like a company would be able to make something big like this and just like, oh yeah, it's free. So yeah, that's really cool. I also really like how they're leaning more toward the supernatural stuff, since Ghost of Tsushima is very like pretty grounded with like everything. Every time there was like some mystical monster that some NPC was like, oh, help me with it, it was usually just like a bandit and stuff like that. And I appreciated that in the main game, since it never like stray too far about what it wanted to be. Like there was like one quest where it got kind of weird, but I think that was because you got drugged or something. But most of the time it was pretty grounded. So it's gonna be nice to see them do like demons and monsters and stuff. I think that's a pretty cool idea to make the mode feel different from the base game. In terms of me actually playing it, I might play the 2-player mode because I actually do have PS Plus. I bought it when it was on sale because why not? Oh god. And I'll probably just play with my brother and I'll play the 2-player mode, see how it is. I might play the 4-player mode like just for like a little bit, just to see how tough it could be, and just see the different classes and things like that. Because I do think it's pretty interesting. And I want to see if there's like any progression or things like that. Like I'm just curious to see how it would work, I guess. Like I don't know how I don't really know how in depth it's gonna be. Like I don't know if it's just gonna be fun for like a little bit, or you can play it for a while. So yeah, that's definitely something I'll be interested in like testing out and just see how fleshed out it is. But either way, I think it's just a pretty cool mode just to add in there to keep replayability pretty high, so you can keep playing the game and stuff like that. And it's free, so
Yeah, a wave-based survival mode. I think that that's pretty familiar with most multiplayer games these days, I would say. But one thing that I found interesting was that some people on Twitter was using this as an opportunity to shit on The Last of Us 2. I was like, huh, guys? Like, I don't know what's going on here, but I can't exactly recall the tweet that I saw, but it was about like how, haha, look, we got multiplayer and Last of Us didn't, and that's why it's better than Last of Us 2. And I'm like, you good, bro? Like, I'm not exactly, I mean, obviously, like, these are just like internet trolls at this point. Like, these are just people that just go on the internet and just like say whatever the hell is on their mind and not really give too much thought about it. But yeah, I don't know.
It's just like annoying, like that Ghost of Tsushima. Like, it's a fantastic. I love Ghost of Tsushima. It's really good. But it's really annoying that everyone's using this as like their game, like, oh, this is better than Last of Us 2. I'm like, can you not? Like, just like the two completely different games. Like, they're not even the same like thing at all. So I don't really know why it's even being compared. The only thing you can compare them is that they're both like big Sony exclusives, and that's about it. It's really annoying that they keep using this game as their like champion. Like, I don't like that. Stop it.
Yeah, it's really annoying, but
Yeah,
we'll move on.
it is what it is about that stuff. All right, so last big piece, well, I guess last gaming news here is the Nintendo Indie World Showcase. I actually didn't watch this live. I watched it a little bit later because I forgot it was happening.
Same.
But yeah, overall, I thought it was pretty good. To show some pretty interesting games, some games we saw previously, and some like games that we knew that are out but are getting ported to Switch. So that's pretty cool. The biggest of ones is Hades, that's coming to Switch, and they also announced when the game's actually coming out. Because right now it's in early access, and now it's supposed to be going to 1.0 in fall 2020. And Hades is fantastic. It is a really good roguelite. Probably my favorite Supergiant game besides Bastion. Like, I think it took the combat of Bastion and like the story from the other games and like mixed them together really well with like a roguelite progression system, and I think it works really well. I definitely need to play the game more, as I played it when it first came out in early access and had a good time with it. But there's been so many updates like recently that I might just wait until it actually comes out just to like replay the game again. But it's definitely up there with one of my favorite roguelites, and I highly recommend it. Hades is very good. Next one here is Spiritfarer. I think that's how you say it. I think this was
Spiritfarer or
something. Yeah, I think so. I think this was in Game Awards or E3. I can't remember. It was in Game Awards, I think, when they showed it last time. And or was it the Sony event? I can't remember. They showed it in some other big event, basically. And I thought it was just like, oh, this is a cute, feels good game, like whatever. I didn't really think too much of it until I saw the new trailer in this showcase. And it actually looked pretty good. Basically you just like build homes and stuff, and you make like these dead like animals feel good about themselves, so they move to the afterlife or something like that. So that's pretty neat. So it's sort of like a base builder type thing where you make animals feel good about themselves and then they like die or go to the spirit realm, I guess. It looks pretty neat. The animations look fantastic. Like it looks really clean, like just its animations and things like that. So that's pretty impressive for like an indie studio to do. So yeah, that definitely piqued my interest a little bit. But it's also like $30, so that's a lot for an indie game. So hopefully it has enough substance to like make it interesting for that price, since that's a lot of money.
Yes.
So yeah, there's some other ones too. What you call it? Takashi and Hiroshi. That one looked interesting to me too, because it looks like the art style one looks like it's very unique. It's like this weird looking like I don't know how to describe it. Like not stop motion, but like
claymation.
Yeah, claymation looking thing. Yeah, it looks pretty interesting, and it looks like it's gonna be sad because it looks like making some RPG for like your dying brother or something. Like
yeah, it looks pretty feels bad, man.
Yeah, it looks pretty feels bad, man. And I guess another big one, and I guess this was like one of the last one. I'll let you talk about some if you want to, but Title Goose Game is also getting 2-player multiplayer, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Again, I always think this game is just a meme game because it kind of is, but that's kind of cool if you want to keep playing it or you just want to make some memes or whatever. So yeah, that was one of the other big announcements that a lot of people were talking about.
Yeah, if you want to mess around with someone else.
Yeah.
As a goose. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think the showcase itself was good in a sense that a lot of the games that they showed off were out when they did the presentation. So like when they did it on August 18th, a lot of those games came out that day. Because I think the problem with the previous indie showcases was that like they would come out like a little later, and like a lot of people would just like forget about it because it was just, you know, a indie thing, and people would just watch it because it's Nintendo and they want to see something if, you know, something piques their interest, sort of thing. So if something did pique their interest, it came out that day, or some of them did anyways. But yeah, when it came to Supergiant's Hades, that game looked phenomenal, and I didn't realize that it has been out for a while now.
Yeah.
But it is now just coming to the Switch for fall 2020. The Spiritfarer game, like we said, it is a $30 game, so hopefully there's a lot of substance there, and hopefully when you do buy it, you are playing it for a long time, because this is not like a, you know, run-of-the-mill $15 indie game that you'll play for like 4 to 5 hours sort of thing. There's probably like a lot of content here that you can do, and it looks like that there's like this world that they want you to explore and things like that. So yeah, definitely a title that I think if you're into it, you're into it. If you're not, you're not, sort of thing.
Yeah, basically.
And then Garden Story. This game looked, it was described as a action adventure game, but with like fruit and like weird little thing. I mean, like the game looks cute, and like it has like this sort of like retro aesthetic that has sort of not been apparent these days in terms of like indie games. It's not as popular as it was like 5 years ago. But that game looked pretty cool. It's coming out 2021. And like you said, Tageshi and Hiroshi, that is a $10 indie game, and is also available on the App Store. So it's sort of like a point-and-click adventure game, I would assume.
Yeah.
Because if you go on the Nintendo sort of webpage for the game, it can also be played in tabletop mode. So I would assume that, you know, that means touchscreen stuff. And then one of the more interesting titles that I liked was Evergate. This was a sort of 2D puzzle platformer that had a very cool art style, and I think that it can be pretty good in terms of like that aspect, because I like puzzle platformers and I might give it a shot. I'm not entirely sure, but it is $20 and it is out. So maybe when I, you know, finally get a goddamn job when COVID's over, maybe I'll try it out. But then, you know, last thing was Unentitled Goose Game. That was sort of like the big bombshell, because that's definitely the most popular indie game out of the bunch, and it is getting a physical version and 2-player sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think that it was a better presentation just because a lot of the games were out that day. So if you were interested in it, it was out, or if they were coming out later, some of them had like a demo and things like that. So
Yeah, and I really like that, since a lot of indie games now do like demos. I've been seeing that a lot recently, so that's always appreciated when, you know, games do demos, since that doesn't really exist anymore. So yeah, it's really neat to see indie companies keep doing demos like that. So yeah, definitely a lot of good indie games, and you know, I always like these Indie World Showcase because they show a lot of, you know, more known indie games, because I knew most of these are coming out, but also a lot of newer ones that like caught my interest. So yeah, I really do like these indie events. So yeah, I might pick up a few. We'll see.
All right, so we'll get into our recent activities now. I'm gonna let you go first.
Yeah, let me go first, because I just been playing Final Fantasy XIV for the past 2 weeks. The new patch came out, which is the conclusion to Shadowbringers. So usually the way it works is, you know, they release the expansion, which is called like 5.0 in this case, which is Shadowbringers, and then the next like 3 patches continue that story until 5.3, and then the next 2 set up for the next expansion. So yeah, that's usually how that cycle works. So this was the conclusion of Shadowbringers, and I've already said that Shadowbringers has been an amazing expansion. Like, I absolutely love the story. It's probably one of my favorite Final Fantasy stories, like in general, because it's so good. It really it just captures all the things from the other expansions and from the base game, and like just like mix into like one big conclusion, basically, since this is supposed to be not the final like arc of this, like, well, not the final story of this arc that they've been doing since the beginning. Like the next expansion is supposed to like end it, but this one basically feels like the end. And 5.3 really, like, again, this is like the actual ending of it, and it felt really good. Like they really like closed like a lot of plot points and made like everything just like it was just so good. I can't really talk about it because it's all spoilers, but basically they did a great job concluding all these story arcs and introducing new characters that don't feel ham-fisted in and stuff like that. They did a great job, and if they just ended the game right there, we'd been like, okay, I guess Final Fantasy XIV is just over now. We've been okay with it, honestly. It ended it so good, but you know, they're already set up for the next expansion, which again is supposed to end like this whole arc they've been doing since the base game. And I can already tell it's not gonna be as good since it's gonna deal with like the whole evil empire thing, and it's never been that interesting to me. But who knows? Maybe they can make them more interesting. I thought the main villain for this expansions were pretty boring until like Shadowbringers came out. So if they could probably do it at this point. I have trust in the writing team at this point since they already did all the setup now. So they just gotta give the villains their motivation, things like that, like they did with Shadowbringers. But yeah, overall the story itself was fantastic. I like the new Nier raid was a lot of fun since I also love Nier and that they're doing the whole like crossover and things like that. The plot for it isn't that great since it's kind of it really does just feel like a cameo, which a lot of people were kind of scared of since a lot of the raids in Final Fantasy do take things from other Final Fantasies or other games and like sort of incorporates them to the world of Final Fantasy 14. This one definitely just feels like Nier is like in Final Fantasy 14. It's like just like a giant cameo, which is a little disappointing. I was hoping they would like do some more weird stuff. But as of right now, it kind of just does feel like a giant cameo. But it's still, like, the Nier raids are still fun. The bosses are very fun to fight. They're all very Nier-based, like, with their mechanics and things like that. And it's just, like, a good time. But yeah, besides that, it's just I've just been playing it a lot. So can't really say much else about it. That's all I've been doing. Sorry. I probably could be playing other things.
It's not good.
Yeah, I got it mostly out of my system. But yeah, I'll probably end up playing some other things next podcast.
It's all good, bro. Don't worry about it. All right, well, I got some games here, but a lot of anime that I need to talk about. So we're going to get into the games first. So first, Spider-Man PS4, I've been streaming that again because I was like, all right, I want to do a retrospective video, but to like make sure that I do it justice and to make sure that I get like my points across, I wanted to replay the game from scratch, not from like New Game Plus. So I did that, and I also replayed all of the DLC. So yeah, I mean, the game itself, I have some differing opinions on the story from my first review. I think I was a little too harsh on it. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I like the story. That's when you would say you were like, I kind of like the story when the first
time. I think it's because when I played that game, I came off of the Ultimate Spider-Man comic book where I came off of that and then I play this and I'm like, like it's not as good as this, but I'm like at the end of the day, like Marvel Spider-Man in terms of a Spider-Man story, it's like perfect. Yeah. Like it deals with the problems of Peter Parker and Spider-Man and all that good stuff. And then when it comes to the gameplay, I was definitely a little too nice on it. The MJ and Miles sections are dog. I'm gonna be completely honest. Those parts, when I was replaying it, I was just like, I don't want to do this. So like I would like get caught a lot because I was just like trying to like speed run through it. But yeah, like still, like it is definitely like my favorite PlayStation 4 exclusive to date. Next game here, Valorant. Just been playing ranked with friends or whatever. I honestly never play solo because that just doesn't sound like fun. Because if I'm playing bad and someone's just like, oh man, like why'd you do this? Like, man, and I'm like, one thing that people need to learn is that like when you, and I think I talked about this last episode, is that like when you like communicate in games, is that like, because this is a lot of people's like first game where like team chat for like teams is like important. When you talk in team chat, when you talk, make sure it's like important, like info. And it's not just like, oh man, why didn't you do this? Oh man, why'd you do that? Because like some people will literally like turn on their mic just to say that shit, and I'm like, dude, like that's not gonna help your teammate play better. Like they 100% knew like what they did wrong, and if they didn't, like that's their problem at the end of the day. So, but yeah, still having fun with Valorant. Definitely more fun than League because I played League yesterday and I played 3 games and I lost all 3 games and it wasn't even my fault. Moving on, Fall Guys. That is still a super fun platformer battle royale. There was one game where Kofi straight up yoinked my tail on Royal Fumble at like 1 second left. So like I thought I won, so then I was just like running around and then Kofi like dove into me and like grabbed my tail and then I lost. And I literally ran into the other room so mad because I was just like, I can't believe that happened.
That game doesn't matter until the last like 4 seconds. Like that's like...
Yeah, it is very true because some like team games like straight up in like the stupid egg one.
Yeah, egg scramble.
One time we were just like straight up losing, and then like we just screwed over one team, and then we just won, and I was like, all right, whatever. Like the team games are definitely like one of the bigger problems of the game, but they're like actively like fixing it with like patches and things like that. So, The next game here, Among Us, it's another social deduction game. I didn't know that this game is like 2 years old or something.
Oh,
Like
I
this
didn't
game's
know
pretty
that.
old. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the game's like really old, but like people are just playing it now because of offline TV and like their sort of like friend circles like playing it a lot on stream. So I didn't get to play as imposter once while I was playing, but I always get like super aggressive and like really mad when like people are thinking that I'm the fucking imposter when I'm like, bro, I'm just doing my task here, and then like I get thrown out or like someone kills me because for this game, like when someone kills you, like you can't like talk like after you're dead. So like to like keep like the game going, you gotta like sort of like play that sort of role.
Right.
And I'm just like when I die, I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm just gonna be a ghost and like try to do my task. But if you guys don't find out who the goddamn killer is, I'm gonna be really mad at you when this game is over. So
It's basically Town of Salem, right? Like, 'cause that's how that
yeah,
works. So.
it's pretty much like town of Salem, but. Yeah, it's fun. As long as you have enough people, I think 5 or more is a good amount. I think 4 might be a little too short, but I think it can still work. But I think like 5 or more is definitely like the good spot in my opinion. Next game I got here is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I wanted to pick this game back up because I've been watching a lot of anime, and I was like, I want to relive the Dragon Ball Z story again. So I decided to start the game over because last time I was playing the game, I think I was facing Nappa or something. So I was just like, yeah, like that's pretty early on. Let me just restart it. But yeah, like I said, however many episodes ago when I first played it back in like February, it is a action RPG just retelling the Dragon Ball Z story. They do add a lot of like filler-esque stuff into the game to make the game somewhat different from other Dragon Ball Z games because they want to tell the full story of Dragon Ball Z. And a lot of it is just like I really like just don't care. So like you'll find me like on stream just like skipping a lot of the dialogue because I'm just like just get this over with. Like I really just like don't care. And like they add like literal like filler. Like there's like a part in the game where like Korin needs some like water and like dirt for the sensu beans. I'm like, what the fuck is Goku doing this for? Like I don't get it. Because like Yajirobe was like, I can't do it because I'm busy. And then like Goku does it. And I'm like, I'm Goku, so I have to do it now. But I just played the mission where you actually get your driver's license with like Piccolo.
Oh, hell yeah,
that
dude.
shit was hilarious. I was like, yes, I get to finally experience my favorite filler episode in a game.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Other things. Some people say the game's ugly. I think the game looks fine for like a anime sort of like 3D action fighter, whatever the hell you want to call it. Like I don't think the game looks bad, but there are like a lot of frame drops, and like when the game loads like new parts of the game will freeze. So like after like a cutscene or whatever, the game will like straight up freeze to like load stuff, and then it'll come back, and then I'm like, okay, that's not good. Like that's like super obvious, and I'm like, I don't like that. The game is like not perfect, but it's definitely like the most fleshed out like Dragon Ball Z game out there because it's an action RPG. So they do take the time to dedicate like a lot of it to like retelling the Dragon Ball Z story as much as possible. But I would honestly would have much rather played a game like this where it told the Dragon Ball Super story, since like the Dragon Ball Z story is like so goddamn old, and like a lot of people know like it. Like I literally know that story front to back, but like I don't know like details in terms of like what happens, but like I know like how things happen, like who wins this fight, who wins that fight, sort of thing. But I would have much rather played a game that retold like the Dragon Ball Super story or something like that. Maybe they'll do that for a sequel or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me they do, 'cause I think this game sold like crazy, so they might just do a super like sequel. I actually don't. I know there's like a season pass. I don't know if they're doing super stuff with that, because that might be, that might like hamper it from being an actual sequel. But yeah, I think like a sequel to like Super would be cool. Like if they did like this same style of game, just with Super stuff. I would also take like an original Dragon Ball game like this. That would be pretty cool too. But yeah.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. But I think they did do some like super stuff like add-ons to like show like how Goku and Vegeta were like training with Beerus to like get the Super Saiyan God form or whatever. But it's sort of like filler stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then now we're gonna get into like my anime sort of spiel. So if you want to skip to the Avatar stuff, you can. So I read only the last chapters of volume 32 of the Hunter manga. So the reason I'm reading the Hunter manga is because the anime stopped at a certain point, the 2011 anime. So I want to know what happens. So I like bought all the manga, but volume 33 is the one that I was missing, and it just came in today. So obviously I had to do the podcast, so I didn't read it. But they are setting up a new story. So by next episode, I will 100% be fully caught up on Hunter x Hunter. But yeah, I'm very, very excited to get that started because I love the anime. It's definitely like my favorite anime of all time. Just because I love the characters, I love the world building, everything that the show does, and I can't wait to read more. And if you want to see my like anime list, I ditched my anime list because that website's from like, it still looks like it's from 2003, and like the way that it functions also feels like it's from 2003. So I switched over to annilist.co. If you want to check out my profile, annilist.co/user/tvsonic. And that website's just a lot more cleaner, a lot more modern, so you can see like what I'm watching, what I'm planning on watching, etc. But that's only if you're interested. But anyways, I finally finished Kill la Kill. So that's a show that
hell yeah, dude.
That's a show that I've been wanting to like watch and finish for a while, and I finally did it. I really enjoyed the first half of the show. I'm gonna be honest, like that the first half of the show was pretty good. And then the second half of the show was pretty nutty, as I put it.
That's what happens in Trigger, baby. Go space.
I still enjoyed it in the end, but like I was like when I was getting to like the last couple of episodes, I was just like binge watching them just to like get it over with, because I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like there's like stuff that's like going on that I'm just like, that didn't make sense, or like what is going on here? And like I'm not gonna spoil any of it, but like I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah, like it definitely takes a certain like mentality to watch a Trigger / Gainax thing, since the second halves always go like batshit crazy at the end. And yeah, you have to. I love it, but yeah, if you're not used to it, it's definitely like a turn off. Like Gurren Lagann does the exact same thing. The first half is pretty like self-explanatory and pretty normal for the most part, but the second half goes full on crazy. And I mean, I love it. I love Kill la Kill and Gurren Lagann because how crazy to go to like near the end. But I could definitely see how it could be like a big turn off to a lot of people. And like, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that it's an acquired taste. You know, put it mildly. So
yeah, this is my opinion. I was just like, the second half was like way too much for me in terms of like what it was trying to do with like the story and things like that. But the animation was like still good through and through. You know, the fan service is still there, still present. You know, if you could get past that, and you know, hopefully your parents don't walk in or whoever while you're watching the show being like, what the fuck is going on here? It's like, hey, yeah. It's a good show, I swear. But yeah, overall I think Kill la Kill, like the first half is like really, really good, and then the second half is, you know, it does its thing. The show that I've just started yesterday, Tower of God. This is it's a South Korean manhwa, so like it's pretty much a Japanese version of like a manga, their version of or like their word for a comic. So yeah, it is a Crunchyroll original, and I'm only on episode 6 right now, and so far it's all right. It's like a normal like shonen. It's only 13 episodes. It's exclusive on Crunchyroll because Crunchyroll is like making it and things like that. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people really didn't like how like the animation and like the art looked. Personally, I'm fine with it. It does look rough on the edges, but it's okay. It's whatever. It definitely has like a distinct look to it because of that. But I don't think it's like bad or like, yeah, I don't think it's like bad by any means. When I think of like bad, like sort of like animation and things like that, I think of like Dragon Ball Super when they're like retelling the movies, because like that looked really bad, and I was just like, oof, like that's not it. But yeah, so far it's all right. I'm only on episode 6, so I'm like about halfway through. But the next thing here was something that I didn't expect myself watching. So Beastars. This is a Netflix anime exclusive because Netflix got the rights for it. And this shit is goofy, weird, and unintentionally funny at times, but it's full of heart with great themes and ideas. So it's an animal world where the main setting is in high school. So just think of like Zootopia, but in high school, but with like more like sexual things and blood. So like that that definitely might turn some people off because they're like, I don't want to be like associated like as a furry or things like that. Which like me personally, like if you're a furry, whatever, bro. Like that doesn't like affect how I view you, because like, you know, as long as you're not harming anyone or yourself, I don't care what you're doing, like at the end of the day. But there is the characters are all great. They all have different issues and conflicts that they have to deal with. There's a lot of blood and some like like I said, sexual things that happen. But if you can get past that, the show has like really good like themes and ideas. Like I said, I was definitely a bit skeptical watching it at first because I was like, I don't like feel very comfortable watching this. But I think it's good to like get out of your comfort zone to like watch something that you heard that it's good, but like it's not something that you would like fully buy into. So watching this and like watching all of the episodes that are on Netflix, because it's only one season right now, it is like really, really good. So
Yeah, I also watched it and I feel the exact same way. Like I really liked it. Like I didn't know how to feel about it at first because again, I heard it was really good, but I'm like, let me see what they're talking about. And I do think it's really good because I think it takes what the concepts of Zootopia was and like sort of amplifies them to like a lot more since it could be a little more mature about it. Like for instance, I like that the predator animals are like they don't have to be feral to like have that instinct to eat like herbivores. Like they're just like that, and I think that makes it more interesting. Like sort of like what do you call it, friction between herbivores and carnivores. Like I think that's really neat. Like since that's always like an ever present threat, and it really just shows like systematic racism and all that stuff, and like how that like, I don't know. I just thought it was really clever how they did it, and I know the animal allegories are like kind of overdone like nowadays, but I do think they did a good job. Like they just took what made Zootopia good, but like made it better. So yeah, I really did enjoy it. I feel like this is actually pretty good for like non-anime people because it doesn't even really feel like an anime sometimes. Like I like forget. I'm like, oh yeah, it's an anime. I don't know. I feel like the art style really helps it since it is in all CG. And at first, I didn't know what to think about that since I think CG and anime could be a little like wishy-washy, if it's good or not. And I definitely think it does look really good for the most part. Like I think a lot the character models and animations all look pretty good. So, yeah, I think Beastars is really good, but you just gotta know, you just you gotta know what you're getting into before you watch it. So
yeah, definitely. The CGI, personally, I like you said, I was a little skeptical as well because it can be 50-50 in terms of the CGI.
Yeah.
But I was okay with it at the end of the day because they do some like 2D animation stuff. It's not like frequent, but they do it sometimes. And like some scenes and like some moments in the show are like very beautiful, and I'm just like, wow, like that looks really, really good. And yeah, it's like a mainly CG show, so. Yeah, at the end of the day, if you want to watch it for North America, it's 12 episodes on Netflix, only on Netflix because Netflix, cut the check and all that stuff. So, but there's supposed to be a season 2 coming next year, I believe.
Yeah.
So whenever that happens, that I or we both will probably be watching that.
Yeah, I'll probably watch it as well, yeah.
Okay, so last thing I got here is probably something that, oh my God, I can't believe I actually did this. So I started Yu Hakusho last Monday and I finished it like 8-9 days later, so like a little over a week, and the show has like 112 episodes.
You're crazy. Oh my God.
Yeah, so like literally like I would spend maybe like most of my day just watching the show, like 10 to 15 episodes. Like it was kind of like unhealthy, I'm gonna be honest. So like this is why I'm like watching Tower of God and like a lot of like shorter shows, because I'm like, all right, let me like experience like other stories, because like I've watched like Yu Hakusho for like literally a fucking week straight. So I kind of need to like chill out a little. But this is a show that I always saw on Toonami, but I never really gave it a shot because it just didn't look all that interesting to me. But I really, really enjoyed it by the end of it. I watched the English dub because the English dub is actually like pretty good. It's not like terrible. This was recommended to me by Lotus Asakura. He's a YouTuber. He does Dragon Ball Z Fighters content.
Right.
But I do watch his vlog / lifestyle videos a lot, pretty much exclusively. That's like the only like, content I watch of him. Sometimes I'll click on like his Fighters videos if I'm like bored or whatever. But yeah, this anime is really, really good. Yusuke is not like the normal shonen battle protagonist. He's a fucking asshole, and he's like not a good person like by any means, because he's only 14 years old and he's still like going over sort of like that angsty sort of like rebellious phase. But at the same time, like his home life is like not all that great either. And he doesn't want to be the best or like do anything or whatever. Like, with Naruto, I want to become Hokage. With my hero, I'm going to become the best hero. With this one, he literally like doesn't care. And like, so like the first episode, it's not really a spoiler because it literally happens in the first episode, but he dies. Like he straight up dies because he saved a kid from getting road killed. And like he sees like the the people in his life, how like they process it and things like that, and like how that like how his death affected him. Now obviously he's not dead for like the whole show, because he comes back like a couple of episodes later, and that's when like the show picks it up and like he becomes a spirit detective, and that's when he gets this job and cases and missions and things like that, and that's pretty much the entire show, is him doing these cases and trying to bust bad guys as like a spirit detective. So yeah, it is really, really, really good. I think that everyone should give it a shot. Unfortunately, it is locked behind Funimation.com. All of the episodes are on there for free though. There's just ads in between. My way around the ads is that don't use ad block, because Funimation does detect it. I use Brave. Brave is a web browser that is built off of Chrome, and pretty much what they do is that it has a built-in ad block. So when I was watching the episodes, it would just go past the ads and it would just go to the next part of the episode. So that was pretty good. So I didn't have to watch ads, because there was one episode where it wasn't working on Brave, and like the ads were like maybe like 2 to 3 minutes, and I was just like, all right, like this is OD. Like they threw like five ads at me per ad break, which there was like 2 or 3 or something like that. So I was just like, I can't. Kurabara, Hiei, Kurama, Botan, Keiko, etc. Like all of these supporting characters are really, really good, and they all fill a role in Yusuke's life and his journey in being a spirit detective. And I really liked all of them, like his group of people, and obviously Yusuke as well. I liked all of the characters, and obviously this is a battle shonen, so like the power levels in this show get like higher and higher, because it's just how it is. After the dark tournament arc, which is like the first tournament arc, the show does get like, it doesn't really reach that height again, but the show is still like pretty good in terms of that aspect, if I can say that, if that makes any sense. Because the Dark Tournament arc is definitely the peak of Yu Hakusho, but after that, they do a couple of other stories before they get to the end of episode 112. But yeah, like overall, like it is a really, really good show. Supposedly, there are some differences between the anime and manga, but the anime does a lot of things right in terms of adapting the manga in a better way. So I believe like Yusuke, like he smokes in the manga, but they didn't do that with the show, because I guess they just didn't want to make him be too much of a dumbass or a bad person.
Right.
And also the ending for the anime was a lot better than the manga, supposedly, just based on my research. But yeah, like if you haven't watched Yu Hakusho, definitely like give it a shot, because it is like one of the older anime shows that I think deserves more. Or it's not really like underrated, but I think that a lot of people skipped on this because when it came out, like other shows like Dragon Ball Z were out at the time, and like me personally, I didn't watch Yu Hakusho because of like Dragon Ball being out, and obviously this manga / show or anime was created by the creator of Hunter x Hunter. I forget his name. This is really bad.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like he did Yu Yu Hakusho. He was doing that like consistently, and then like he took a break because doing Yu Yu Hakusho consistently for like that long like really took a toll on his health, which is why Hunter x Hunter has been on break for so long, because of his health. So then when he went on to Hunter x Hunter, there was a lot more breaks in between that for that manga anyways. But yeah, that's enough of my rambling for Yu Yu Hakusho. If you haven't watched it yet, definitely give it a shot, because I think that this is definitely a really, really good battle shonen that does a lot of things differently, but in the right ways. So
yeah, I need to watch more like shonen things. Like I think I've been watching a lot of like like Gundam, or like I guess Attack on Titan doesn't really count. They say it's a shonen, but like hardly. Like I like Demon Slayer was a good like sort of like, oh yeah, I like shonen. So yeah, I'll probably watch Hunter x Hunter. Might be my next thing I might watch, but we'll see.
Yeah, Hunter x Hunter is pretty long, so
yeah, I know. But I don't mind watching like a long. I'm not gonna watch like 10 episodes a day though. That's crazy. Like
yeah,
Jesus. All right.
I was really into it, gonna be honest, but we'll move on from that. So the last piece of news is the Avatar: The Last Airbender creator stepped down from the live-action Netflix series. So the news broke with both creators coming out with their statements. So before we get into that, what was like your first reaction to seeing this sort of news of them like stepping down and everything.
I was like, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be bad. Or like, yeah, basically when I first saw this, I'm like, my faith was already kind of like, about this like remaster, of like live action remake or whatever. Now it's just like, oh man, now I have like no faith in this. Like that's gonna be any good. Again, when I first saw the headline, what was your first reaction when you saw that?
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I was just like, Netflix is a bunch of clowns. Like, I don't know what they were doing at the time in terms of like that would cause them to be like, hey, yo, we're not gonna, work with Netflix anymore on our creation for this adaptation. That just seems like really insane and obviously like a bad sign in terms of like what the show is going to be. But yeah, when the news first broke, it was just like both creators came out with their statements. I'm not exactly sure whose statement was a lot more like transparent or see-through in terms of like what was exactly happening, but there were just creative differences between Netflix and them as creators, and Netflix said that they were going to be given like a lot of like say in terms of like what the show is going to be, but it turns out that like Netflix were like, we don't like that, or like, we don't want to do that, and like Netflix also were trying to do it to them as well, being like, we wanted to do it like this way or like that way, and like they just couldn't come to like a consensus in terms of like what they wanted to do.
Right.
So like that sucked, and like Netflix's statement in the Forbes article was pretty much them like, yeah, we respect the creators and their vision and things like that. Although they have departed from the live action project, we are confident in the creative team and their adaptation. So they are confident in their team, obviously, because if they weren't, that would be really sus. And it's just another PR statement. But I think the bigger news is like this like sort of like Fandom Wire exclusive that came out, and we're still not sure if this is like true yet, because obviously the creators can't say anything because they signed a contract and probably can't talk about this yet. But I'm sure time will tell in terms of like what they wanted to do with the show, and maybe Netflix might still go through with these changes, and that would be really bad. But the creators wanted a bigger budget. Netflix wanted to consider white actors. They didn't want to like straight up hire them, but they wanted merely the option to audition with an open net of all nationalities, including white actors, but the creators refused. They wanted to age up the characters, have a much darker, mature tone with romance, sex, and blood. So what do you think of that sort of like thing from Fandom Wire?
So yeah, I mean, basically it's doing like the whole like they want to make like a grittier reboot or whatever, and I feel like that kind of like, I don't know if that goes against the show, but it's definitely like, I don't know. I feel like the show did a good balance between being pretty lighthearted and having more serious moments, but for the most part, it was pretty lighthearted with a lot of things. Obviously, you can make it like a little more mature, but like having it be like that, I'm just like, all right, let's chill out a little bit. Like, I don't know. I feel like you kind of go against what the show was about in the first place anyway. Like, I don't know. I feel like they did a good job making like a kid show like into something more than it was. So doing things like this where you want to make it more edgy and things like that, I don't know. I just feel like you're kind of forcing it at that point,
Yeah, it is definitely Netflix's way of trying to be like, hey, our adaptation is this much different from the original. But like sometimes when you're adapting something, it's okay to be like not exactly textbook, but like being very faithful to the original. And I think that them trying to be like, okay, so this is like our adaptation going on our platform and we want to do it like this, and the creators said no, maybe that should be a sign to not do it. But if these are the actual things that they were trying to do, and obviously the creators were like, we don't want our names to be attached to this, which is very understandable if like these things are actually true, aging them up, having a much darker tone, that is definitely not like what the Avatar show needs, in my opinion. I think that, like you said, it definitely struck a very good balance between being a kids show, but at the same time having somewhat dark themes to it, and having like good ideas in there for like kids to learn, and like sort of, freaking Zuko's arc, like his entire character is like a pretty good like thing to learn as a kid, like just because, your dad says it doesn't mean it's 100% right, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I just feel like the original show did a good job, like having more nuance with things. Like, if you make it more obvious that like like Zuko being abused by like his family, basically, it's just like okay, we get like you kind of got that picture from the original show. Well, like they show it, but they don't like really make it like so obvious. Same thing with like just the different nations in general. Like basically like the Earth Nation being China with like how it acts,
Mm-hmm.
like and like the Fire Nation being like warmongers and like stuff like that. Like warmongering Japan basically, since that's what it's supposed to be based off on. I don't know. I feel like all these nuances like you could probably get like. But I feel like if they make it into like something more like, yeah, look how hardcore we are, it's just gonna like lose that, I guess. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that, you know.
Yeah, I just feel like that Netflix is just putting their hand too far in the jar that they don't need their hand to be in, sort of thing. But they have the rights, and they have the they have the freedom to do what they want at this point because I guess Viacom or whoever gave them the license to make this live action show. But it just sucks that the creators are they weren't forced necessarily. They felt like that it was necessary for them to step off of this project because of the things that they were that were sort of like proposed to them, and like them wanting a bigger budget. I think that might have been sort of like a contention thing as well because like they want it to be as big as possible. They are making this into a series and not just like a movie, so they want it to be as good as it can be. And they also wanted to make sure that they didn't hire white actors, which I think is fine because I think diversity and representation in media these days is very important. And Netflix being like, well, can we at least consider them? I don't know. Like that seems a little much.
Yeah,
In my
especially
opinion.
since the kingdoms have very different nationalities. That like having that just be white, it's just like why? They're supposed to be all like different nationalities anyway, because that's how it is in the show. Like I know it doesn't have to exactly be like the show, but still like like they're supposed to be all like you can just have everyone be like white or like have some white people. Like it would be weird. Like just because
Yeah,
it's
we
like
can't have a we can't have a ghost of Ghost in the Shell situation with
yeah
Scarlett
yeah just
Johansson.
have Scarlett Johansson be there. Is all right. Like I don't know. I feel like that's a little weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like when it comes to like remakes of like shows or movies, like take the Disney stuff, right? Like I feel like
Hmm.
the cartoons didn't age. Like they're good still. You can watch them forever and it will always be like high quality, like The Lion King or whatever. But when you remake them like this, it just feels like super unnecessary and like money grabby. And I feel like the reason why I don't feel that with video games is because video games age a lot worse than like movies and things like that, since you can just watch them or whatever. With games, you actually have to like
Hmm.
play them and stuff. So like something like like Crash or something, like like it could still be fine and stuff like that, but it definitely has aged like a lot more than if you were just to play the Insane trilogy. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
having like this be remade, it's just like I don't really see the point of it because the original one still holds up well. It doesn't really need to be remade or anything like that. So unless again, if they do something different, then yeah, sure, I guess. But I don't know. It's tricky to say. Like basically, I just wish we got like another Avatar series instead that instead of like this remake.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the sort of bridge between Avatar and Korra, like that time gap, I know that they did a lot of that stuff in the comics, and obviously they could just adapt the comics into a cartoon show. I think that would be like pretty dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, like adaptations in general, whether it be from a comic book to a cartoon or a show to a live action show, whatever. Yeah, normally when it comes to non-interactive forms of media, when you're doing that, you have to be like very careful and very like faithful to the source material, or else you're gonna create a divide within the community or like create something really bad in the sort of like fandom.
Hmm.
So like obviously, for example, the first Avatar movie, everyone agrees that that shit is not good. And when it comes to most anime slash manga, when they adapt it, they either adapt it pretty much to a T, and then they add some like filler stuff or like make some changes here and there, or they'll like adapt it and then at a certain point they'll just go off the rails and do whatever. Another like sort of like Western thing that they've done that from a comic to a sort of show is The Walking Dead. Like that show is now completely different from what the comic book is. Like they've done so many different changes and so many different sort of turns and directions with the story that at this point, like the AMC Walking Dead show is not what the comic book is. So yeah, when it just comes to adapting things. I think that this Netflix adaptation for Avatar, anyways, I think that a lot of people are not going to sort of give it the time of day. I'm pretty sure there's some people that are still going to watch it. I might still watch it. I really don't care because I'm still going to be paying for Netflix until that show comes out, you know?
Right.
So I might as well give it a shot, you know, see exactly how bad it is or maybe how good it is. You never know. Maybe they will take the advice of the creators and be like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have done this sort of thing. But maybe they will go through with it, which is why they had to step back. But obviously we don't know the full story and the full picture. All we know is that they stepped off in the fandom Fandom Wire article that sort of detailed sort of the things that could have happened or, you know, that did happen because it was a sort of inside sources sort of article. But is there anything else you would like to say about this?
No, I think that's everything.
All right. Well, that is it for the Travis and Damian Podcast, episode 43. We will see you guys 2 weeks from now with another episode.
See ya.